Well, let's take this forward along with, of course, the rest of the fundamental talk with Prakash Diwan, who's with us on the show this morning. Happy Monday to you, Prakash. Actually, before we talk stocks, let's get down to this. This has been long awaited, right? We've been hearing about this for a long, long time, that SEBI will come down to tighten the F&O market rules and maybe, investor protection, too many people in the F&O market, surge in options trading. We know all the headlines. What do you make of some of these new norms that are being proposed in terms of how they will tighten the inclusion criteria?
Good morning, Survi. So, you're absolutely right. This is something which was in the making for a while. And particularly ever since we've had this delivery-based settlement on expiry days, that was the first step, I guess, as a precursor to curb any kind of a price, manipulation that could potentially happen, especially in the stocks which are very low on float. And the other thing which we've seen, I think this norms, I'm not an expert on derivatives since I don't track it regularly, but what I could sense is, look at what it could do to some of these stocks which very easily get classified into the ban period, right? When the open interest goes beyond that 95% cutoff. So if that were to kind of, if the float is higher, if the number of contracts traded, the volume is decent enough, you'll not have a lot of frequent moves of those kinds, which actually are quite inhibiting. So I think from a market health perspective, this will definitely be healthier. The interesting names that Mangalam ran us through, the inclusions particularly, I would be wondering if whether DMart or Avenue Supermart could come into that, because it's kept itself out of it for a long time, though it kind of meets all the other criteria. So let's see. Interesting days ahead. I don't know when this will get implemented, but I'm sure it'll be helpful.
Avenue Supermarts will make the cut. According to Nuvama, if these rules are implemented, then Avenue will make the cut. A lot of others like, Bata, etc., some of the other larger stocks, they could go out, but Avenue makes the cut, Zomato makes the cut, Geo Financials, long list, BSE as Mangla mentioned. So these are the stocks that get in if these are indeed the norms. So that's on the F&O bit. Just talking about PI Industries, Prakash, very quickly, just coming down to some stocks in news. PI, one of their largest clients, has given out a guidance. It's not too heartening. There's a lot of destocking that's still going on. Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And remember, the Japanese don't do these things very easily. I mean, there must have been enough. It's a well-meditated decision, I'm sure. And pyroxsulfone is something which is such a mainstay part of PI's portfolio as well. So I'm sure there's going to be an impact today. And that will also have a rub-off effect on a lot of the other agrochemical plays in the market. So be watchful of that space. It still hasn't kind of, got out of the issues that we've been seeing in Europe and globally elsewhere. The only saving grace there could be, some of the import substitute products which have been doing well. They'll probably continue. So you might have that, and some of the businesses, some of the chemical companies which have shifted gears into other chemistry could probably benefit. So, guys who are into battery chemicals, the likes of Deepak Nitrite, which have gone into phenolics. So you'll probably have to shuffle your portfolio if you have chemicals as an exposure. But it's yet not time to jump in and buy afresh.
Prakash, hi, morning. Extraordinary last few days, right? Absolutely, week to remember. And week to week, I was just looking at changes. The IT index is up 8%. This is not from Tuesday's lows. Friday to Friday, the IT index is up 8%. All the attention was on staples and FMCG. The FMCG index itself is up 7%. The auto index ended up 7%. This is all Friday to Friday. And the PSE index, for all the noise and fire and fury, it ended down 1.5%. That's it. Where is, generally trading interest and momentum likely to show up going forward after what we've seen?
Good morning, Prakash. No, absolutely. I agree. The week has been tumultuous in that sense, but it teaches you one very classical lesson, and that is long-term investing has got nothing to do with what happens in a day or in a week or probably a month as well. So, we are talking about the same stocks, same sectors from a longer-term perspective that we did probably a week back. But yes, for traders, it could be fairly fatal. In terms of stocks that do well, if you really ask me, you will have autos which will continue to, some of the auto names, and let me tell you, it's now monsoon related. It's got nothing to do with consumption, and also Mahindra & Mahindra, my sense is, will continue to ride on that momentum. you'll probably have IT take a backseat at some point. I mean, you have the likes of Wipro and all, which are kind of correcting on the way up because they were oversold. But I haven't yet seen anything significant. And the worry is, given what's happening in the US, Prashant, and you track that very closely, the way the yields have started firming up, the DX is going up. You'll probably see the dollar lose ground and the rupee gain some strength over the next few months. And if that were to happen, IT will have to be re-looked at in terms of what kind of earnings you could expect from there. The only pocket that I feel, and let me of course touch upon PSUs. PSUs will probably see a little bit of sideways movement because the multiples were too high, so it needed an excuse to correct it. The business will continue to do well. Some of the PSUs are very smartly bracing for another bout of growth, but that doesn't mean that the stocks would also kind of follow suit. But the area that I think will do very well is cap goods and infrastructure. So infrastructure, we've seen the first semblance of moves coming. There's a lot of clarity that will come through in the next 100 days in terms of which pockets will see money getting spent, which was not the case for the last 2 months because of the way the regulations are. There's nothing much which has happened on infrastructure, but telecom, roads, water, urban water management, these are pockets that probably do exceedingly well in the next 6 months, in my view. But yes, PSUs largely will probably take a little bit of a backseat.
Right. Prakash, on that 100-day agenda, the Indian Express is reporting this morning, guys, we were discussing this last week about housing, right? Perhaps. The Express is saying that as part of its 100-day agenda, first 100-day agenda, the newly formed government is likely to approve 2 crore additional houses under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. That's the PMAY Grameen, this rural, with higher assistance per beneficiary. So we don't know in what interest subvention or something else. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, these are the kind of stories which will now start to. First, of course, is who gets what portfolio allocation. But then after that, I think what sectors get the impetus. Absolutely. I think Prakash, any thoughts on this one? Housing as something we were discussing last week as well.
No, absolutely. I think the better way to do that, to play this theme, Prashant, would probably be the HFCs, right? I mean, we are all talking about how NBFCs and financials as a weightage hasn't kind of, got its fair due, whether it's in the indices or whether it's in allocation of portfolios. But somewhere HFCs will start doing it. And you see how some of them run up. You look at Canfin Homes, you look at LIC. My sense is that in the last 3 years, they've all showed up their balance sheet to a very great extent that they'll be able to leverage on the growth going forward. And of course, you have some of them which are focused onto the affordable pocket or the price point, which might make sense, the likes of Awas and Aadhaar and all of that. But I would not play this with the reality thing. Real estate is a tricky thing for affordable, but nobody's focusing on it amongst the larger, well-balanced, well-capitalized kind of players. But the HFCs are the way you could do it. And then, of course, indirectly, you have cement and home improvement and all that. But then that takes time. There's always a lag. The HFCs, the moment somebody buys a house, you have HFCs coming into play. So that's where, I think there will be a lot of value being created. Multiples will re-rate before the EPS actually goes up.
Absolutely. And just thinking, probably a good time for Bajaj Housing Finance to be coming out with their IPO. Though I don't know how much of their book is, catering to rural. Of course, those discussions and debates will happen on that 7,000 crore rupee IPO that's coming.